Namaskar, a very nice afternoon. Thank you, Professor Mishra, for talking about me, which are not entirely true. I am just a civil servant who worked across the country, and I belong to Jammu and Kashmir cadre of the Indian Administrative Service. I am from Odisha, and I had the opportunity to work across the sectors like any other IAS officer, so nothing very big to talk about. I retired in the rank of Secretary in Government of India, where most of the IAS officers retire. But being from IIT Kharagpur, I studied there, and also the areas that I have worked in my 35-36 years of service in the IAS, there are certain things which I developed myself in the area of energy, because I was heading a power generation company. In the area of investment finance, because again I was a CEO of a big investment finance corporation in Ministry of Agriculture, and also setting up new aims across the country, which were originally announced by compliances, accreditation, those entire system. So, as all of us know, we are in Amrit Kal. Amrit Kal basically, essentially means we have to make ourselves, as the Honorable Prime Minister says, we have to make ourselves, India, as a developed nation before 2047, when we complete our 100 years of independence. We are in Amrit Kal, and my talk, presentation on sustainable development will work around that entire concept of Amrit Kal, and how we as different practitioners or would-be practitioners in sustainability area, we have a role to play, and how IIT Goa, its students, its professionals, its faculty can play a role in Amrit Kal towards sustainability development, working with the industry. I have also want to mention that in association, in discussion with the Honorable Director and the faculty members here, I have designed a draft curriculum on sustainable development and ESG, which is environmental, social and governance issues for industry. So, that much for the introduction. Let us move towards different aspects of sustainable development. Very briefly, we will talk about the proposed framework of the course that I have proposed to the IIT Goa. Then we will touch upon UN agenda, which is sustainable development goals as the agenda. Then net zero, global boiling, Amrit Kal I mentioned, and life, Panchamrit. Honorable Prime Minister has talked about these things, and life is a global word now. Lifestyles for sustainable development. The G20, which ended just last week, has adopted life as a global path for the entire developed world. G20, now it is G21. And Panchamrit, ESG I will briefly mention, and what are the career opportunities in this area. I will start with a small anecdote from Lord Buddha's life. One of his disciples, he goes and tells Lord Buddha that you are always talking about the world, taking care of the world, you don't take care of us. Then Buddha asked him, asked the disciple, why are you talking like that? He says, look at my clothes, it is in tatters and you don't take care I need a new cloth. So Buddha gives him a new cloth. The disciple comes back and tells him, I am very happy and all that. So Buddha asks him, what did you do with the old cloth? So he tells, I am using it as my bedspread. Then Buddha asks him, what did you do with the old bedspread? He says, I am using it as the window curtain. What happened to the old window curtain? The old window curtain is being used as utensils, cleaning the utensils. Then he asks, what happened to the old clothes which are being used in the kitchen? He says they are being used to mop the floor. Then again another question comes, what happened to the clothes which are being mopped? He says, I am using them as the wick in the lamp which is in your room. This is how the conversation or the anecdote ends. What do we learn from this as a sustainable development from this anecdote in Buddha's life? Sustainable development, which we in another language we call circular economy, circularity. Circular economy, two words, but huge amount as we go by, as all of you know, involves huge body of science, research and things like that. So the course name tentatively we have given Sustainable Development and ESG Framework for Industry. Here I will mention in the course we will be going through sustainable development in a much detailed way, and many of your faculty members will be also be associated hopefully. I'll just come to the last we will achieve. Why should we say global warming is behind us? It is now, we have entered a phase of global boiling.
Because we are on track to this deadline, the limit 1.5 degrees.
We are crossing that, and all over the world we are seeing forest fires, storms and heat waves. This is a fact of 2023, because assessment is that 2023 has been one of the hottest, but Sustainable Development Goals are 17 and 2023 is the midway of taking stock of achievement of Sustainable Development Goals. So there is another committee of scientists from the UN, auspices. They met very recently and only about 10 days back they have come up with a report called UN Stock Take, 7th or 8th of this month. So the stock take means Sustainable Development Goals, जो 17 है, against that how much have we progressed and achieved. So the scientists who are independent scientists, no agenda, no business houses sponsoring them, no government sponsor, they are independent scientists, independent researchers. They say only 14% is achieved midway. So 76% to be covered in another 8 years. So the major conference is coming up under the UN next week. Another thing, December, the COP that I had mentioned, COP, Conference of Parties, it will take place in Dubai, where these targets will be checked. And about a week back, we had what? G20. G20 was a major success, and G20 had, what is the core of G20? One earth, one family, one future. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This is our PM's idea, in which he talked about Amritkal, Panchamrit and life. So G20, if you go through the G20 leaders declaration, the core of its declaration or adoption, whatever they say, it is sustainable development. Everything. There is a very important reference to G20 Tourism for Sustainable Development Action Plan, G20 Goa Tourism Sustainable Development Action Plan for the world. There was a G20 conference on tourism in May or June I think. It adopted lot many things, rather recommended, which have been adopted by the G20 leaders, no controversies, nothing, no second opinions, to be adopted for the world. So Goa has contributed that and it is prominently referred to. Some of you may say that this sustainable development gang, because there is, you can always say that this gang, that gang, this sustainable development environmentalist gang, anti-engineers gang, anti-manufacturers gang, anti-mining gang, they are creating lot of fear psychosis. That is also, this is a reality. For everything that you say, there is also an alternative opinion. But reality is that, I think my friend he talked about 1.5 degrees. We are on a track, because if we are not below 1.5 degrees centigrade till 2100, the most of the ice sheets will melt and there will be major collapse in society. That is what, when we say 2023 marks the 31st anniversary of World Scientists Warning to Humanity, signed by more than 1700 scientists in 1992. Today, the scientists, another group of scientists in UN Stocktech, they say only 14% of the goal is achieved. And the IPCC, which is, IPCC is another group of, large group of scientists, huge research body. They say that perhaps we will be exceeding 2 degrees unless we take real action. By 2050, we will be exceeding to 2 degrees Celsius, which will be disastrous. Risks due to climate change in India. We are in Goa, we are on the coastal plains, precipitation, urban floods, cycle. So the Goa problems are here, but most of us are in IIT Goa, but we are from across the country. So India as a country is very prone to climate change ill effects. Most of you will be knowing what is greenhouse gas, how does the earth gets warmed. So the bigger culprit are these two, carbon dioxide and methane. So immediately, though carbon dioxide and methane do not remain in atmosphere as long as the HFCs or HCFCs, CFCs, they remain, but volume wise their warming effect is more. Time duration for the other ones is more. So this is very real for you in Goa. Have you heard about it? You are in a forest. Though it is, this campus is not classified as a forest, but it looks like a forest, right? Goa has a huge forest cover. Now, the law has been amended, lot of forests which are of a different category, they can be used for non-forest activity. So there is a write-up in local newspapers and things like that. And scientists have identified global tipping points. There is a novel, famous novel called The Tipping Point. Beyond that, things really take off. It's a business jargon, but these are the 17 global tipping points where things are going wrong and global warming thresholds, if they are breached, things are going to be really, really bad, irreversibly bad. There is a concept called net zero. During the course will be, but net zero or carbon neutrality you might have heard. Anyone can answer me? What is net zero? Zero carbon emissions. Okay. Any other? Yeah.
Use of diesel and petrol to be minimized as
The use of,
the natural use of.
because it will lead to less emissions. Okay. Okay. Net zero means, say, we'll take an example of a, since we are in Goa, let us talk about mining, because if I talk about agro-processing, it is not really relevant, but for you as professionals, for you every sector is important. Let us take mining. How can mining be net zero? Because mining, Goa mining is iron ore. Iron ore you dig out, you use machinery which emit a lot of greenhouse gases, which is basically carbon dioxide and other things. You create a lot of waste, right? You use a lot of water, waste and energy, and these are all adding to the GHG emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. But can a mining company be carbon neutral or net zero? Because it is all, on the face of it, it is all emitting, say, and how do you measure the greenhouse gas emissions? How much of carbon dioxide in tons you are emitting? So net zero is that concept. Okay, you are doing mining, we are not asking you to stop mining. But if you are emitting, say, 10 million tons of carbon dioxide in a year, you have to offset it with 10 million tons of carbon capture, carbon reduction. How do you do that? How do you do carbon dioxide capture? One is planting more trees, because trees are carbon sinks. Okay. What else? By converting another useful product means, suppose you are using lot of diesel, which is only crude oil, perhaps you can mix, say, 20% ethanol into it, biofuel. You can go for your operations with solar energy, renewables, carbon footprint goes down. You are reclaiming your wastes, waste in the sense, you are, suppose you are creating only, you are mining only 65% Fe, you are throwing away 50% Fe ore. So you are trying to go for pelletization or some other method to convert 50% Fe to higher grade. So that is also waste reduction. You are trying to conserve lot of water. Suppose the mining areas you are creating water recharge systems, you are. So all these things put together, if your balance comes to neutral, means this much of greenhouse gas you are emitting and this much you are absorbing, then it becomes carbon neutral or net zero. Who is going to measure this? Somebody has to measure this. Who are the people? Scientists, engineers, social professionals, sociologists, economists, these are the people. Lot of research is required for measurements, certification, and also skill development, because this is not a normal skill that these kind of things are. So there is a need for carbon neutrality, and those kind of professionals are not very much in demand and not very much in place. This is just a assessment. Globally, for net zero, you need about $275 trillion to achieve, because there are many things. Because if you are going for afforestation, plantation, they cost money. Okay. I already mentioned about this study, Stock Tech 14% study. Specifically, Amrit Kal was first mentioned by Honorable Prime Minister in 2021 during the Independence Day speech, 75th. The purpose was to reduce economic disparities and reduce dependence on the government. And Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is 25 years, which as a part of that, which Honorable Director said in the beginning that the ministry has asked, it is part of that Amrit Mahotsav, this 25 years activity we are doing. In Amrit Kal, we are doing many steps and moving towards our commitments to the global society. There is something called, we always talk, leaving no one behind. Any idea what is leaving no one behind means? Yes, Sabka Saath. What does it mean, Sabka Saath? Leaving no one behind is a UN term, which they talked about mostly after 2015. The PM has been talking about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas from 2013 onwards, right? What is leaving no one behind? No one should be left. It can be an old age person, it can be a person on the top of a hill or a mountain in Ladakh, it can be somebody in Sundarbans, it can be somebody in Ponda. All types of human beings, whether they are men, women, other gender, disabled, child. So it talks about everybody. Don't leave anyone behind. Take everybody's concerns and move ahead. And also it talks about the entire ecosystem. Alone, a human being alone cannot survive unless you talk about the ecosystem. So leaving no one behind, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Prayas, Sabka Vishwas is the essence of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The PM has been talking about mission life, and now G20 in 2023 it is adopted, but he spoke about mission life in 2021 in Glasgow. He talked about this lifestyle for environment, and the G20 has adopted this. In Glasgow, Prime Minister Sahab talked about Panchamrit, and this Panchamrit is also India's NDC. NDC means India's commitment to the world as a formal commitment. This is not informal speech or something. This is documented. We have given a signed document to the UN that these are the targets which will achieve, and most of it is a reflection of Panchamrit, which PM has talked about. India will reach non-fossil energy capacity of 500 gigawatt, will meet 50% of our energy requirements by 2030, will reduce total carbon emissions by 1 billion tons from now onwards till 2030, will reduce the carbon intensity by less than 45%, and by 2070 will be net zero. Most of the developed world is 2050 net zero. It is India and China, we have kept our target as net zero. Net zero means, as we said, we will not stop our coal mines, we will not stop our thermal power plants. They will be there, but to offset that, we will be creating carbon sinks, carbon reduction mechanisms, when in the net will be net zero. This is a simple way of talking about it. If you look at the net zero targets and the achievements, 2050 Japan will reach, Korea will reach. Most of these developed countries are in track. Why? They are in track to reach 2050 net zero targets. Or how is this net zero calculated? Our annual emissions, whatever you emit, how much you absorb. What is our argument? Our argument is that you people have emitted whatever you had to emit since 1880. Why? Industrialization started around that time. You exploited the coal, whatever you want to, you moved on to nuclear, you created a